Greenville, Texas was established in 1846 and was a town that relied on farming and agriculture. Most people lived on the outskirts of the city limits and had to travel into town to enjoy an evening out.
I started going to the Texan Theater in the 1950s. Getting to go to a movie theater was a really big deal because you lived about 15 miles. I lived at Lone Oak out in the country, and it's about 15 miles to the theater.
Located on Lee Street in the center of downtown, the Texan Theater was considered the hopping place to be from the early 1930s all the way to its closing in 1975.
Because everybody looks at it a little different, has a different memory about it and everything. Yeah. But it was definitely the place to be when I was a kid growing up.
Friday and Saturday nights consisted of young men carrying their dates to the show, buying them popcorn and a Coca-Cola. Saturday afternoons, tons of children attended the matinee, also known as the Kiddie Show. The Texan Theater had originally replaced the historical King Opera House, which was in business from March 21, 1891 to 1920. During the time of the Opera House, there were performances by Houdini, the Marx Brothers, Helen Keller, and many more influential figures. The Monumental Theater was destroyed in a fire in 1898 and left the theater in bad shape. The Texan Theater was then built in place of the King Opera House. The present-day Texan Theater actually still shares one of the original walls with the King Opera House. September 6, 1934, the Texan Theater has its grand opening with its showing of She Loves Me Not, starring Bing Crosby and Miriam Hopkins. The news of its debut took up more than full pages in the Greenville Evening Banner. Only one example to how important the opening of the business was to the community of Greenville, Texas.
I started going to movies up there when I was probably 9, 10 years old. My grandmother gave me money. It was a quarter to get in, and then we'd sell cold drink bottles to get enough to buy a cold drink or some popcorn. We split the Coke and popcorn between my younger brother and I.
My first date night was at the Texan Theater. It had one movie, and it changed one time a week. So every Saturday there was usually a new movie you could go see.
During the 40s, less traveling shows appeared on stage of the Texan, and the theater was beginning to direct its business towards cinematic pictures.
Some of the movies I remember during that time were the early James Bond movies. We all fell in love with those. The Clint Eastwood movies, Good, Bad, and Ugly, and a bunch of those. And then, of course, my all-time favorite, every time one came out we had to go see it, was Elvis Presley.
When a Saturday matinee, when I first started going, was 15 cents for Saturday afternoon. Then it went to a quarter, and then it went to 50 cents.
Between the 60s and 70s, the Texans changed ownerships multiple times and still remained the same business and kept their mission.
There's one thing I do remember specifically about the Texan Theater. In July of 1964, the Beatles. The movie they made, The Hard Day's Night, was going to come to Greenville. And we actually had to go in Greenville and stand in line to get pre-ticket sales, to get you a ticket to the movie. And I was one of the lucky ones that got a ticket. And I can remember going to the movie, and of course it was full of mostly girls, okay? But they were just screaming and swooning, and I just sat there and watched it. You know, I enjoyed every minute of it.
But there's a lot of good memories. Beach Blanket Bingo, I remember seeing it there. John Wayne, War Wagon, saw tons.
The Texan Theater showed its last movie in 1975 due to the hardships of the 70s. The closing of the theater had a dismal effect on the community of Greenville. Many first dates took place in the same theater chairs that were there for years. Thousands of boxes of popcorn were bought from the same vendor. The city's monument, which had been in business for 50 years, was closing its doors to a whole set of memories. In 1992, it became a ladies' discount shop. No more films were shown, but the big, famous sign was still visible. That was all that was left to remind the city of what the Texan used to be.
And I think it was about 1975 that they actually closed the Texan Theater because they built a new theater out on Wesley Street. And the new theater had 2 movies at a time, and it was real enjoyable. And that's where I ended up taking my kids to the movies. So we said adieu to the Texan Theater.
In 2010, a woman named Barbara Horan came to the theater's rescue and bought the antique building. When the news hit the newspaper, people went ecstatic. All the memories our parents and grandparents had made were in that building. A new hope was planted in the people of the past generations, and the town watched curiously until the final reveal, although the suspense carried on for 4 more years until everyone could witness a true masterpiece. In 2014, dreams came true. Miss Horan had completely renovated and refurbished the Texan Theater. She had said, quote, "The hardest part was getting my ideas across to the designers and the architects. They all wanted to go a different direction. I had to stand my ground and do my best to communicate the vision in my head so they could get it on paper and build it. It incorporates the earlier generations of the Texan by preserving the original pieces from the 20th century, but also puts a newborn spin on things that make it new and improved." The Texan has now been open since 2014. It opened with the Neil Simon's The Odd Couple. Then the following week, the Texan had Willie Nelson's son, Lucas Nelson, as their first music performance. Over the past 2 years, the Texan has seen talents from Jimmy Vaughn, Lori Morgan, Shirley Jones, contestants from American Idol and Dancing with the Stars, The Village People, and many more famous figures. The new renovation of the Texan that Miss Horan completed stirred a new spark in the past generations who enjoyed the theater in its original state. Whether Gone with the Wind or a new Star Wars film is showing, or Frank Cosmo is performing, a theater is a place where people can laugh, cry, sing, and dance all at the same time. A theater is not just a place to observe, but a place to interact. And that is exactly what the Texan Theater has done to the small Texas town of Greenville.